they're off. Welcome to Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management by Dynasty Financial Partners and hosted by CEO Shirl Penney.
Welcome to Season 5 of Around the Track. Hello, and welcome to another edition of Around the Track, the most exciting 15 minutes in wealth management. I'm your host, Shirl Penney, founder and CEO of Dynasty Financial Partners, and I'm incredibly excited about this episode of Around the Track because I'm joined by a good friend and partner of ours here at Dynasty, Tom Callahan, who is the CEO of Nasdaq Private Market. Tom, thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation.
Well, Shirl, it's an honor to be here. It's an honor to be in St. Pete's and to meet your amazing team. So thank you for having me.
Awesome. So we've talked a little bit about the rule. There's only one rule in Around the Track, which is we're going to try to make our way around the virtual track together in roughly 15 minutes, right? So if we're moving too fast, you need a break or anything, just let me know, okay? So look, in life and in racing, how you break from the gate matters a lot. So let me give you a nice softball to get us going. Tell the audience a little bit about yourself, your background, your family, if you like, and your role, as I said, as the CEO at Nasdaq Private Market.
Sure. So you probably can't tell on camera, but I'm 6'6" and a former college football player. So Shirl, if you're looking for a jockey for your next horse, I'm probably not the guy.
You played football at Harvard.
I did.
How was the team?
We were remarkably mediocre, which might have been entirely my fault. But I was 300 and something pounds. I was a left tackle and wanted to be an NFL player, which was I got close, but ended up getting a back injury my senior year, which derailed it, which sent me off to Wall Street.
Yeah.
But outside of that, I've got 4 amazing daughters. My work is my passion. Startups are pretty intense businesses, as you know. They tend to be pretty all-consuming. But outside of that, my big passion is animal rescue. I'm a pilot and I'm a volunteer for one of the big animal rescues in New York City. And so when I'm not working on my business and spending time with my family, I do a lot of animal rescue flights.
That's great. So we're going to talk a little more about our partnership at Dynasty with the Nasdaq Private Market, which we're incredibly honored and excited about. So thank you for that. But maybe just as we lead into the conversation, can you tell the audience a little more about the Nasdaq Private Market and what are some of the product and services that you're providing to your clients?
Sure. So NPM has been around for about 12 years now. It was actually started within Nasdaq back in 2013.
Yep.
You may remember, Shirl, there was a pretty important piece of legislation that was passed under President Obama called the Jobs Act. And the Jobs Act did a whole bunch of things, but at its core, it really deregulated the private markets. There used to be this law that when, as a private company, if you got to 500 shareholders, you couldn't have 501.
Right.
So it was kind of a forcing mechanism to make private companies go public. And it used to be 15 years ago, the average company waited about 5 years to IPO. Well, the Jobs Act raised that from 500 to 2,000. So it just made it way easier for private companies to stay private. Next to that, we had this incredible growth of venture and PE and these huge oceans of capital to fund and support private companies. So what Nasdaq was worried about at the time, and I think history has shown it was a valid concern, was what if the Jobs Act means companies are going to wait longer to go public?
Right.
Well, here we are in 2024, almost 25. Companies wait about 15 years to IPO. So NPM was created to do private company tenders. Now, think back to 2013, Shirl. It was the first generation of unicorns. It was Facebook and Zynga and Groupon and Twitter and those type of names. When those companies wanted to do tenders, they called their law firm, and it was a very tedious, laborious, expensive process done in Gmail and Excel and phone calls, really inefficient. So NPM built a piece of technology to automate that.
Right.
So we've been doing tenders for over a decade. We've done close to 60 billion in total volume.
Wow.
And we're still, we think, the leader in that space. And so we spun the company out of Nasdaq. So even though we still go by NPM, and Nasdaq is still an incredible partner and still owns a significant portion of the company, we spun out in 2021 when they hired me as CEO. I was at BlackRock, and I saw your
Yeah.
episode of Around the Track with my friend Rick Reeder, which was
Rick's
which was
great.
phenomenal. Yep, he's a really inspiring guy, and I love that episode. But we spun out in 2021, and now we're owned by a consortium of about 9 banks: Goldman City, Morgan Stanley, BNP Paribas, UBS. A lot of people that are also your partners, Shirl,
Yeah.
in various capacities. And so, we have grown and scaled the business very significantly since then.
All right. So I want to pick up off of something that you just said, which is, the trend of companies staying private for longer, and talk a little bit about the macro demographic trend that's kind of made it in some ways a bit of a perfect storm for your business right now. We've talked about some of the statistics. When we started Dynasty, 14, plus years ago, the number of public companies, then versus today, it's significantly declined. So can you talk a little bit about the backdrop that's made this such an appealing time for you guys to execute against the mission at NPM?
Yeah, I mean, again, you go back to like 2013, I think there were something like 39 unicorns. We now have over 1,200.
Yeah.
It's a $3.5 trillion asset class. If you just look at VC-backed unicorns, that's
We like being in that club, by the way.
yeah. Congratulations.
Yeah.
So yeah, it's about the size of the U.S. municipal bond market, and at the same time, as you rightfully say, the number of publicly traded companies has dropped almost by half over that same period of time. So something big and important and profound is happening in the U.S. capital markets. My own view is, I think, it's largely a regulatory story. We've overregulated the public markets and deregulated the private market, so it shouldn't be a shock. One has grown, one has contracted. But what that means for NPM and for Dynasty and for us as partners is we have millions and millions of private company employees that are finding wealth, finding liquidity for the very first time, and that's what NPM does, is to facilitate that, but then to send them to competent, talented wealth advisors through the Dynasty Network is really just an incredible opportunity. And I'm going to make a prediction. I think sometime in the next 20 years, we're going to have more unicorns than we have publicly traded companies. Now, that may sound crazy, but that's the trend line that we're on, and I don't see anything that's going to change that, which means that servicing private company employees as wealth clients is a generational opportunity.
Yeah, no, I'm not going to argue with you on it. It certainly is the trend line. It'll be interesting to see, if it continues, if the macro demographic challenges of operating a public company continue, down the path that they're on. It may be inevitable that you're right on that prediction. You mentioned a little bit about the partnership with Dynasty, and again, thank you. Part of the partnership for us is all of the advisors on our platform. A lot of them cover entrepreneurs, and many of them are companies that I think would be a wonderful fit to offer a tender on your platform. So a lot of the advisors are excited now to be able to bring those opportunities to you. And then you mentioned, coming the other way, which is, our fiduciary-based advisors, independent advisors, are now going to be able to provide, whether it's pre-liquidity guidance, planning, support on estate planning, financial planning, diversification around a concentrated stock position. We have a lot of expertise that's kind of core to what your clients need. And I think, adding that service is a real differentiator for NPM, that you're now able to provide high quality, independent, fiduciary-based wealth management alongside of some of your core offerings. Not to ask who, but I just know that, given the flows that you guys have, you could partner with anyone. Again, I'm super appreciative you decided to partner with us. But let me ask you, why in your view, was Dynasty the right partner?
Yeah, so for the 10 plus years we've been doing tender, Shirl, when a private company employee would come through our tender process and would realize proceeds, how it always worked is we just asked them where they wanted us to send the money, and we would send it, which means oftentimes we were doing thousands and thousands of wire transfers on the back of a program. And that's just how we did it. But about a year ago, we looked at the data and said, where are our clients sending the money? And the majority, first of all, it was their first time wealth event. So these people are coming into money for the first time in their life. And 3/4 of them were putting it in a checking account, not a brokerage account, not an advisory account. So that told us that we weren't really doing our jobs as fiduciaries. So I've done a lot of jobs in finance, Shirl. I've never worked in wealth. I didn't honestly even know who the players were. And I thought we had this really unique, privileged position that I thought maybe some wealth players would be interested in, but I wasn't sure. So I started making calls. Sometimes I started making cold calls and really just trying to figure out where people are interested. And I will never forget our first call. First of all, you're the CEO of the company, and you showed up, and a lot of other places we were talking to relatively junior people. You understood this opportunity and what we were doing instantly. And honestly, at that time, we weren't sure. Your belief in us gave us confidence that we were heading down the right path. And then as we got to know Dynasty more, you used a couple of the really key, words, independent fiduciary. We're a consortium of banks. We're all about choice and independence. And so to be able to, as fiduciaries to our clients, point them in the direction of the best independent advisors was something incredibly, incredibly important. It's not our job to pick advisors for our clients. We need to send them to a place where their specific needs are going to be met based on who they are, what they want, what their dreams are. And we thought Dynasty was far and away uniquely positioned to do that. And then secondly, the needs of private company employees, Shirl, you know this, are just different than public company employees. NSOs, ISOs, private company options, all these issues are just specific, and you need advisors that are fluent in the language of private company employee needs. And your advisors, as you just said, many of them, that is their stock trade. That's what they do. So it's a real differentiated service to be able to send our clients to advisors that really understand them was important. So once we matched those two things together, it really became just super obvious for us.
Yeah, no, I appreciate that. And one of the things I think that really differentiates the work that you do in the alignment with us, and then ultimately our independent advisors, is that we're collectively entrepreneurs that are servicing other entrepreneurs, right? So, I know you know what it's like to sit in the seat of the clients that you're serving, and there's just a real beautiful thing in the alignment as we talk about here is we get to live our American dream by empowering others to live theirs, right? How lucky are we to be able to do that? So I want to just pivot a little bit, but build off, this concept of independence, right? Which to me is something that is so uniquely and profoundly American, right? This concept of independence. One of the founding principles for Dynasty was around the future of wealth management being triangulated. And we talk about the triangulation of advice. So advice delivered by an independent advisor who only works for the client and can only be fired by the client, right? Which is an important definition of independence. If you can only be fired by your client, you're truly independent. Separate and safe custody, where you feel really good about the counterparty that's going to house your assets, and then separate again from where products are manufactured and sold, whether it's asset management, credit, insurance, all the products you need to implement, for your financial plan. Historically, that triangulated model was really only reserved for billionaires with family offices. And one of the things we got excited about building Dynasty is an opportunity to democratize the triangulation advice. And I know that that is something that resonated with you when we were having the conversation. So just as a follow on, because I know there are other options for executives out there that sometimes are tied to stock plan businesses that might be tied into a more captive wealth environment versus our totally open architecture. And I believe that that is a significant competitive advantage for you, but I'd like your views on that.
Yeah, I think it's the key differentiator. I mean, you and I have been around markets long enough, and we've seen in different forms uh, closed walled garden platforms competing against open access platforms. The open access platforms always win. I was
Yeah.
a bond trader in the 90s and 2000s when every bank had their own closed vertical bond trading platform, like Deutsche had Autobahn, and then TradeWeb came along as an open access platform. Well, now TradeWeb is a very, very successful publicly traded company, and those other platforms are shut down. So choice always wins, independence always wins. And I think that's the opportunity, Shirl, that we have together. Again, it's not my business to tell my clients who to choose as an advisor. They're all different. They all have different needs. So to be able to come to Dynasty and give them that choice
Right.
is absolutely critical. And when our competitors, as you rightly say, are those closed walls gardens where you do a tender on one platform and they drop you into one choice of an advisor, you don't have a second, and it's sort of, you get what you get and you don't get upset. I like offering an alternative to that model.
Yeah, I like that you like offering an alternative to that model as well, and I appreciate again the partnership with Dynasty. Just to pivot a little bit, there's a lot of people who are watching this video that are leaders, some of which have transitioned from a large firm like you did. You mentioned BlackRock to a much smaller firm and being an entrepreneur. Can you talk a little bit about kind of your leadership style, as an entrepreneur, your philosophy? Are there things that transition from the larger firm, to the more entrepreneurial side, kind of lessons learned, great advice that maybe you've received over the years?
Yeah, I mean, I've worked at some really big, successful companies. I was at Merrill for 15 years, and I left that to go do a consortium spin out from the New York Stock Exchange. And then I was at BlackRock for 9 amazing years, and now have gone on back to the entrepreneurial world to do this. So I've seen kind of both worlds. Here's what I'd say as a two-time consortium CEO and entrepreneur. There's an old saying that disappointment equals expectations minus reality. I do think sometimes people look at the world of being an entrepreneur and they look at movies like The Social Network, and there's this sort of perception that everything is always up to the right, everything's easy. You flip the switch and all of a sudden you have 10 million clients, and maybe for some CEOs that are better at their jobs than I am, that's what the world looks like. But having done 2 startups now, startups are hard.
Yes.
They're really hard. They're supposed to be hard, by the way. If it was easy, everyone would do it. Building billion-dollar companies, which you've done, I don't need to explain this to you, Shirl. It's hard. And in the early days, it's brutal. It's this exercise in coming to work every day and just getting punched in the face, and you're climbing this wall of no. There's an army of people that will gleefully tell you why your vision is wrong and why it's never going to work.
Right.
And 10 people before you tried to do the exact same thing, that didn't work. And no, I don't want to invest in your company. No, I don't want to work for your company. No, I don't want to buy your product. No, I don't want to be your partner. It's just no, 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 no. And no one on their own is strong enough to withstand that. I don't care how smart you are. I don't care how talented you are.
Takes a team.
You need an amazing team
Yep.
of optimists. I will take stubborn optimists. And you've heard me say this a bunch of times. I like to pick partners and I like to hire people where failure's not an option. Because when things get hard, if failure's an option, a lot of people will choose it. So if you're stubborn and you work hard and you're not going to take no for an answer, that's what it's going to take. Because oftentimes I think just winning as a startup, it's an exercise in survival. Like for us, Shirl, I mean, God, we did our Series B in 23. In the middle of it, our second largest shareholder, Silicon Valley Bank, went bankrupt. The markets were a disaster. Our results weren't great. And I had to go out and sell a vision. And it was really, really hard. I wouldn't have done it without an amazing team of optimists around me.
Yeah, we talk a lot about at Dynasty. We hire for attitude over skills.
Yeah,
right.
totally.
And I think the most important attribute for any entrepreneur, and I argue this with a lot of my friends, I think is grit.
Yes.
Right. You have to have talent, right, and ultimately you have to have capital, and it's about the team. But it is really hard, and most people do quit along the way.
Yeah.
But if you can get the right uh, uh, the missionaries, not mercenaries, on the boat that are aligned with a common cause and are willing, to fight, together as a team and have grit and resolve for a long period of time, then great things can be accomplished. So, look, we're turning for home, so we're coming off the turn. Just 2 questions left. You seem to be doing just fine. So, we're here in St. Pete, and thank you for being here. But a couple weeks ago, you hosted, the executive leadership team. Your office is in New York, which was a lot of fun. Thanks for having us. One of the things that I was really impressed with is the amount of focus and effort and capital that you're deploying into your tech stack, right? Can you talk a little bit about, your roadmap for technology and how you see that as a differentiator for NPM going forward?
Yeah, I mean, I think we have a history of a company of kind of leading with technology. As I mentioned, we automated the tender market a decade ago and continue to invest heavily in that. But it kind of gets back, Shirl, to our conversation about being a fiduciary. Certainly, referring our clients to amazing wealth advisors is part of that story. But there's a way that liquidity happens in the private markets away from a tender. I wish every private company ran tenders. It's the best, most organized, most fair, transparent way to do it. But unfortunately, a lot of companies don't.
Yeah.
So they sort of leave employees to their own devices just to go sell shares into the secondary market.
But more and more are.
Oh, yeah, more and more are, and
Yeah.
that's part of our
Yeah.
our mission is to make that the standard, not the exception. But unfortunately, there still is this need for a secondary market. Now, historically, for employees, that's been an incredibly challenging place. Getting simple information, what are my shares worth,
Right.
is very, very hard. And there is sort of, I hate to say it, kind of a boiler room culture historically in secondary trading, where a lot of employees, frankly, are not given a great experience of off-market execution with exorbitant commissions, 5, 6, 7%. So we launched a piece of technology just a few months ago. We call Second Market, and it's the first fully automated STP platform for executing private shares, where you as a private company employee could come to our platform, log on, upload your shares, get access to world-class institutional data to value those shares, match, settle, all for a flat 1% commission in a very transparent, really, we think, exceptional piece of technology. We launched it in September. We've already had 10,000 clients sign up for it. It's really fun. It's scaling fast, and all that becomes part of our funnel to the Dynasty network.
Yeah, I love it. Look, you said a lot there. We've been talking about fiduciary, client choice, fair price for the client, modern technology, transparency. There's a lot of philosophical alignment, between our firms. So I love it. All right, last question. And this is the last question that I ask every guest on Around the Track. So this will not be a surprise for you. In racing, we wake up every day, whether we're an owner. By the way, I do have a new horse on the Kentucky Derby
read
Trail.
about that.
And
Yeah.
I'll plug Vassimo.
Yes.
Put it on your Derby list.
I will.
He won impressively first time out at Gulfstream last weekend. So Vassimo is our Derby horse this year. But whether you're an owner, the trainer, the jockey, the whole team wakes up and dreams about winning a Triple Crown race, let alone winning the actual Triple Crown. It's one of the goals that is seemingly unattainable, but you still wake up and dream and focus towards it. So as you sit here today, whether it's personally, professionally, you picked a time frame, a couple years or longer in the future. What is the Triple Crown for you, Tom?
Well, other than Vassimo being the next secretariat, what I would
Yeah.
say is, we have this theory and this passion that we can help millions and millions of private company employees achieve their financial dreams.
Love it.
But we can only do that if we're able to successfully convert our clients to wealth advisory clients. And that's something we're working on together.
Mhm.
And I think as we expand this partnership in the coming years, that's something we're going to be very successful at doing that. But if we can take a meaningful percentage of the 20,000 clients that come through our tender network every year and the tens of thousands that come through our trading platform every year and impact their life by placing them with amazing wealth advisors who understand them, understand their needs, and we can change their lives. For me, in terms of a mission for our company, for me, giving purpose to what I do in building this company, nothing else I could find more satisfying. So
I love it. Well, we're looking forward to helping you accomplish your Triple Crown. Definitely given the way you just described it. Thank you so much for sitting down and having this conversation.
Thank you, Shirl.
And thank you again to all of you for tuning in to another edition of Around the Track.